Everything started out of simple curiosity, and although everyone tells me there is nothing for me to worry about, it does not stop being something very strange. Perhaps the strangest thing that has happened to me. The story begins with a friend who is an extremely talented graphic designer, and even though he has a lot of work, I do not want to say his name. I do not know what he might think about me sharing what happened. He began using some artificial intelligence tools to generate images. At first, he wanted to demonstrate the flaws, trying to show on his social media that an intelligence like that, coming from a computer, could not truly match the inspiration of a human being, of someone who has dedicated his life to his craft, like he has, with a vision similar to that of an artist, with infinite possibilities in his mind, a life of knowing, seeing, experiencing, and feeling. But that did not last long. He ended up understanding the advantages that a tool of that type offered him. Creators like him learned how to use it, and the artificial intelligence kept learning from him. I suppose that is the point of one that learns. The truth is, he was becoming more and more effective at using them. He started with some tools that are available to everyone and are very popular, like DaVinci, I believe, and some others. But then he began looking for much less known options that he believed had advantages despite not being so popular. That is how he ended up generating images on that site, and it became almost an addiction for him. He would not deny it, because even his Instagram is now full of images he has created with that tool, whereas before, he only ever showed his real work, what had taken him hours and hours to create. The truth is, you cannot even tell the difference between what he used to do with hours of work and what he is now able to achieve with this artificial intelligence. I think it is better now. He is better. Such a powerful tool is extremely useful in the hands of someone who has the knowledge to make the most of it. I remember I went to his house because we had planned to meet up with our group of friends, and as always, like I have done since high school when I first met him, if we were going somewhere, I would stop by his house so we could get ready together and leave from there. But when I arrived, he had not changed clothes yet. He was still in pajamas even though it was 5 in the afternoon. His mother told me that maybe he would come out of his room if he knew I was there, because he had not been coming out at all, not even to eat, and he was always on his computer for weeks. He told me he was finishing some very important work that would be ready in 20 minutes. He showed me what he was doing, how he managed to create such interesting images. "It is learning," he would say to me. "It is learning your style too, how you like images. Every time it gives me results and I tell it which one I like best, we continue with that. We keep going in that direction. It is amazing. I do not understand how the whole world has not discovered it. Look at these. They could be mine, the kind that used to take me hours, but now I can do them in seconds. I have also fed it my own work. It has been learning from them, from what I do." When he told me that, he showed me several images that looked like his illustrations, but with a surprising realism, with something he had never been able to achieve before. In one of them, for example, a person appeared in the foreground and looked absolutely real. It was a girl we both knew in high school, and in some way, it created an image sufficiently similar so that it looked like she was modeling in that scene, which would end up being an advertisement for a real estate company. I did not want to comment on how strangely similar she was to the girl we knew, and I knew he had been in love with her for some time. I think it would have been awkward for him to realize that I noticed. It had enough of her features to recognize her, but also enough differences so it was clear she was not the same person. The image, though, was extremely realistic. You could only see something odd about the people in the background, in the second plane. Their faces looked strange, almost deformed. A mother and her daughter playing in the yard of a house, a mailman walking along the sidewalk, a group of ladies who seemed dressed like those older women who spend their time in church, apparently staring at the girl in the foreground. Everything looked very real, but their faces were not human at all, which contrasted with the rest of the image. That was one of the things he would correct for the final result. Either add realistic faces without deformities, or just blur them enough so that nothing strange was noticeable. He asked me if I wanted to learn how to use it and try it out. I said yes, just out of curiosity. It looked complicated with everything that appeared on the screen, but he took me to the first window, how the page looks when someone is starting to use it. It is very simple. It asks, "What do you want to see? What image do you want?" Then, you can make a request from the simplest thing, like a Labrador dog playing in the park, and when you see the results, you can choose one, the one you like best. The intelligence then realizes which of the styles it shows you that best fits what you want, and it will show you more similar styles in the next search. You can also be more specific. You can request that the Labrador must be 12 years old, looking tired, trying to play with a younger dog in a park with tall grass and vines around it, while its owner watches from afar, and it is midday. The clearer you are with the instructions and the more details you provide, the more accurate the final result will be. I found it very interesting, but my friend closed his computer and got ready to take a shower. It seemed odd that he did not let me stay there playing around with the AI while he was away. I asked him why, and he said it was already learning from what he gave it, and if I stayed there trying to use it, I would end up confusing my preferences with his. I laughed. I did not know how serious he was about it. He went to shower, we went out later, and we met our friends at a shopping mall not far from his house. Everything was fine. We had not seen each other for a while and had a lot to talk about, but I could not get out of my head what I had just seen. The possibilities, everything that could be done. For some reason, I really wanted to get home and try it. I kept thinking about it the entire time we were out. I even thought about those deformed faces that appeared in the images he showed me. I thought about how much the girl in that image resembled our former classmate, so striking and unsettling it almost seemed supernatural. Finally, I got home and tried to log in. I typed it into the search engine, but nothing came up. There were many similar options that had nothing to do with an image generator using artificial intelligence. Finally, I tried putting it in the address bar, based on what I remembered of the exact website address. I got in at last, although it looked very different from what I had seen at my friend's house. When I tried to get into the area to generate something, a warning popped up. It was invitation only. In order to begin requesting images from that intelligence, I had to be invited by a member, by someone already using it. So, I wrote to my friend, and I did not think he would be so reluctant to send me the invitation. He asked me why I needed it. He told me he could only invite one person, that he could only send out a single invitation, and he was not sure I would appreciate it enough, if I would really use it or if I just wanted to play around for a while and never come back. He thought I would just waste it. I told him no, that I promised I would use it, that it would actually help me a lot with certain projects, giving me a lot of images to choose from. And that was true, and he knew it. He knew about an important personal project I had been working on for months. So reluctantly, he sent me the invitation. I waited anxiously for the email to arrive. It finally did, and I clicked on the link, desperate to get there. It took me to a different page, where I accepted a bunch of terms and conditions that, of course, I did not read. It was strange. It felt like I was entering some kind of magic website or something like that, where my wishes would be granted. Actually, it made some sense given the name they had given that intelligence. At last, I got to a screen similar to what I had seen at my friend's house, where I could generate images. I spent a while requesting images until I ran out of my daily attempts, some sort of stars that indicated each attempt. Honestly, I did not get anything interesting. I asked it for a landscape with a cabin in the fog. I asked it for a car like my dad's, the one I remembered from childhood, driving into the sunset along a highway by the sea. That made me think of a possibility, but unfortunately, I could not do it then. I would try later, when I had credits again. The next day, I kept thinking a lot about it. I looked over the images it had given me, and I thought I understood what I needed to request to improve them, be more precise in what I needed, in what I wanted to see. But my stars would not replenish until that night, so I could try again. I spent the whole day feeling impatient, until finally, 11 at night arrived and the 24 hours were up, so I could start again. Then, I began some searches to illustrate something I wanted to make for my nephews. This project I had worked so hard on. It was a collection of family stories, of which we unfortunately do not have any photos. Also, my nephews never met my parents. So, I wanted to share with them all those anecdotes my parents used to tell us, by means of a book that I, first and foremost, would complete. They would get to know my parents as people, not just from what happened in the final days. There were only rumors and gossip about that. I wanted them to know who they really were, for what they did in life. So, I tried to get something similar to the house where we grew up, those unpaved streets in that neighborhood far from everything, separated from the city. After several attempts, I got some good images, but nothing close to what I wanted, nothing I could really use. I ran out of daily credits, so I had to wait another 24 hours. Then, a message popped up in a window on the website, asking if I was satisfied with the results. I said no. It looked like an automated form, but it came across like a chat message, as if there was really someone on the other side. It then asked if I wanted to answer a short questionnaire so it could learn more about me, to complete my profile. I was very sleepy, but I answered yes. I quickly went to the kitchen to get some water to stay awake. It gave me several options to complete the questionnaire, and I chose the most comprehensive one, the one with the most questions, which took the most time, but promised the best results. I started. It showed me a selection of images, and I had to choose the order in which I preferred them. Various things like home interiors, cars, landscapes, advertisements, and I kept selecting and selecting until I started falling asleep. I would wake up for a few seconds to keep answering as if by reflex. I do not know if that has happened to you. Watching a television program halfway, doing homework and dozing off, only to find you wrote a bunch of nonsense. Or trying to send a text message and mixing what you started to write with a quick dream you had in that fraction of a second you closed your eyes. That is how I felt, in a kind of limbo of consciousness, when the first question arrived that I am not entirely sure was real or not. It asked, "Where is your father?" I had to select one of the options. He died. It asked, "Where is your mother?" I answered. It asked if I was happy, and I had to choose. I do not know. It asked if I had ever wanted to hurt myself. No one had ever asked me that before. I answered that yes, I had. It asked how far I had gone in my attempt. When I woke up, still dressed, lying on top of my blankets, my computer was off. I must have turned it off before going to sleep, but I did not remember much. The questions gradually returned to me over the course of that morning, and of course I assumed it was more of a dream than something that had really happened. It was very strange to think about the information we are willing to give about ourselves in order to get better results or more likes on a social network or more interaction on that, and on any other website. Nobody really needs to spy on us. We give everything away voluntarily, and that is how we become just numbers with a certain value. I have always complained about that, but my fascination with the application was so great that I did not care. I was willing to answer everything to get images like the ones my friend could achieve. I set an alarm on my phone to notify me as soon as the 24 hours were up so I could get back on. As soon as it went off, I ran to my computer and started. I felt that I could do better now, with all the experience I had gained. So, I requested my image. A house at the end of a dirt road in a Mexican neighborhood on the outskirts of a city, with a view of its lights in the distance, with a dog at its doorstep, illuminated by a warm light lamp, with the door open and the lights on inside. Create. Enter. It was important to me that the door was open, because that was how my parents left it in the summer until we went to sleep. The intelligence showed me a house that looked somewhat different from mine, but the street was identical. It looked as though it was the street where I grew up, and the dog was white like my Rocky, the little dog I had when I was a child. It surprised me because I had not asked for color, but it could have been a statistical thing. I do not know, for example, if the intelligence knows that on average, most dogs here are white. Maybe that was why it did that. Well, it was strange, but it had an explanation. I made some small changes to the description I had given. The house must be one story, with a brick wall about 1 meter high, and white bars on top that were rusted from time, with an apple tree under the window on the right, a car outside the house on the street. Enter. Create. What it showed me made me fall out of my chair. The house this time was extremely similar to mine, to the one where I grew up. I do not know if it was identical, because I did not dare look for more than a few seconds, but it was not so much the similarity of the house but the car that was outside. A 1980 Wagoneer with wooden side panels, blue, with the hood open. It was my father's station wagon. When I saw it, I fell out of my chair, pulling the cord from my computer so it would unplug, so I would not have to see the screen anymore, not a single detail. I had not said what car I wanted in the description, and it is a very, very specific model. Because yes, I had also mentioned that 2 nights ago, the first time I used the intelligence, I had specifically requested that model of station wagon on a highway at sunset. Maybe that was why it showed it to me. But that did not explain why the hood was open, and that was something extremely important, something personal to me. My father's station wagon was always breaking down. Almost every memory I have of it is of my dad trying to fix it, always with the help of a neighbor. It was always sitting outside with the hood open, and I had never asked for that. I had never included that in my description of the image I wanted, and this time, for instance, it did have those wooden side panels, not like the first result I got 2 days before, when they were plain metal. It was very hard for me to get it out of my head. I could not stop thinking, why would it show me something like that? But the next night, I went back. I could not resist the temptation, and I went back. The image the intelligence had given me the night before with the station wagon was no longer in my history. I assumed that was because I had not turned off the computer correctly. Very well. It was time to continue searching. This time I wanted to be very specific. I gave it the name of the neighborhood, the area where I wanted the house in the image to be located. I took a breath of relief when I saw there were no cars or dogs, nothing I had not requested. It was just a house, my house, on that empty street. But when I looked closer, I noticed something strange. A figure in the house window, with long, messy hair. At least that was what its silhouette suggested. I had not requested anything like that either. It was not in the description. It looked as if someone was peering out from the bedroom window with the lights off. In addition, the door was closed, even though my instructions had included that I wanted it to be open. That struck me as strange, and it made me look back at the other images the intelligence had given me of the house on all the previous days. That silhouette was in almost all of them, at least in all the ones where I found a real similarity to the house where I grew up. At first, it was way in the background, in the shadows, and I only noticed it when I brightened the image. Then, it was behind the apple tree. Then, peeking out from behind the bars. Until that one image where you could already see it inside the house. Where did this website, this algorithm, this robot, or whatever it is, come from, and why was it showing me that? I knew. I wanted to imagine what it was, but I refused to accept it. I wrote the entire description again for the image I wanted, everything I had written before, but this time, I added something more at the end. There is a 56-year-old man. Just that. Enter. Create. It was the same image, but now there were no city lights in the background, nor were the house lights on, nor was the street lamp lit. It was a very dark image, but I could make out a man standing on the sidewalk, wearing light blue pants and a gray jacket as if he were wearing a cap. His face was blurry, monstrous, like the faces of the people in my friend's background images. But despite everything, despite the darkness, I recognized those pants. I recognized that jacket. I recognized my dad in that image, with the cap he always wore. I had never requested any of that. The other strange figure was there again, not too far from my father, in the darkness, becoming more defined each time. It was becoming more apparent who it was, or rather who she was. How could this thing know so much about what happened in that place? Was it searching the internet, checking every digital newspaper? No, it really was not possible. I was on the verge of leaving it all alone, but I decided, all right, fine, let us make one more request, let us see if this is real. I told myself, This time I will not include any description at all. I just requested an exterior view of a certain address, street and number in that neighborhood, and I gave it an exact date as well. Enter. Create. It seemed to take longer. On the screen I could see the progress bar move, and I felt my pulse start to speed up, thinking about what was going to appear. I hoped it would not show me anything, that it would just give me an error. But it did not. It gave me an image on the screen. This time, it did not look realistic. It was the same house it had shown me before, my house. But now it looked like it had brushstrokes, as if it were a watercolor painting. Everything was in darkness. It was nighttime. The silhouette that appeared in the other images now seemed clearer. It was a woman in a white nightgown with black disheveled hair. Yes, I recognized her. It was my mother. More specifically, it was my mother that day. The day her mind just snapped. The night we were not home, and she took a kitchen knife to her bedroom where my father lay sleeping. That night, when she then called my sister to tell her what she had just done, and we all lost our grip on reality a little, thinking none of this could really be happening to us. I closed everything. I closed that page. I did not save anything. I have not gone back. I do not want to know how it could know so much about us, how it could know so much about me. I was afraid it would show me something more. I was afraid it might suddenly show me where my mother is, even though I know that is not possible. If, after all these years, the authorities have not found her, if after all these years she is legally dead, and artificial intelligence is not going to give me answers. They keep sending me emails. That website wants me to log on again, saying I have many accumulated credits to create whatever I want. But I have not. In my spare time, I have focused on continuing to write my project, full of my parents' anecdotes, for my nephews, so that they can know my parents through the stories they used to tell, not through those final days and the rumors people spread or the legends they tell. My friends do not believe me much, but it is strange. The only thing I can say after my experience is that you should be careful, seriously, about what you ask an artificial intelligence or whatever is behind that website to show you. Unfortunately, I fell for it.